'cause life is for living. Let's see where this all might lead. Let's see where this all might lead. Waking up to a brand new day in between.
Yeah. So just jumping straight in. So I know you because I got an email from one of my biggest fan followers who said that they see you on the socials, probably mostly Facebook, because I know he's on Facebook a lot. And he mentioned you and said he'd love to hear your stories. So that's how I found out about you. And then we've tried to connect a few times, but we've had internet connection issues. And then also there were the riots here and or the looting and the riots. So, as everyone knows, I don't know anything about the guests when they come on the show. And that's the case with you as well. So let's just go straight in. John found you on socials. What would he have seen? Like what would he be seeing from the outside looking in?
Well, that's a good question, and it might not have a straightforward answer. I guess when I really hit the scene was in 2019 with a group that I launched called #I'mStaying. The group was launched at a time where we had a lot of political unrest and a lot of racial baiting from our political leaders. We had the fear of going into junk status, and things were just not okay. It was a challenging time. It was a very difficult time for a lot of South Africans. We were all going through stuff mentally and emotionally. And I felt like I was actually perpetuating this feeling of hopelessness and fear because I was part of the narrative, right? I was the one that was complaining every opportunity I got about the brokenness and about the unfairness of it all. And I made a decision to change my language, to stop speaking on the things that were broken and try to speak on things that were not broken and things that brought joy. And I got these lessons earlier on in my, while I was growing up through Abraham Hicks. I don't know if you're familiar with a lady by the name of Esther Hicks, or she refers to herself as Abraham.
Yeah, I know her.
Speaking about how to conjure your reality. To conjure your reality, right? How to bring and manifest things into your reality or the things that you want. So that was my message to Facebook. I had a small little message on my personal page that said, let's start being grateful for what we have. We live in a beautiful country. We have beautiful people. We have so many things that are good that we can hold on to. And the video didn't get much traction. I think I had about 40 likes on the video.
So what did you actually do?
In the comments.
What did you do? What was it? Okay.
So in the comment section there were two comments that really stood out for me. One was, "I'm a stayer," said one of my friends. "I'm staying. I'm not going anywhere." And the other one said, "Why don't you start a Facebook page?" This was now on the 5th of September 2019, and on the 7th I launched #I'mStaying, and within a couple of weeks we had hundreds of thousands of members. We had hundreds of thousands of stories. There were 35,000 posts a day coming onto the platform. We had, we've never seen anything like it. I mean, within a month or so, we'd reached 1.2 million members, and it was just a flurry of just South Africans coming together, telling their stories. And I think the most powerful thing that came out of that entire exercise was the fact that we completely dispelled the narrative of a racially divided South Africa. We completely blew out of the water that everything was broken. There was so much good. There was so much pain, and a place for people to speak and to just air their stories and tell you about their experiences. And I remember reading story after story with just tears coming down my face, because they were so powerful. It was so powerful. It was so needed at that time in South Africa. And so we manifested that. We manifested this beautiful thing. And that's really where my journey began. It began at #I'mStaying. But subsequent to that, we also launched Move 1 Million, which is slightly different.
Okay, yeah. So that was hashtag I'm staying. So what was the video? Like, what can I expect in my mind's eye?
Well, the video was just me walking and talking about how we can be grateful for the country that we're in. We can be
Yeah.
grateful for the beautiful people and the fact that there was still opportunity, the fact that we have each other, the fact that we have, so many things going for us as a country. That was really the message. It was really quite simple.
Yeah. And I mean, what was your job at the time? I mean, and what is your job now?
Well, now I'm an activist, but at the time I was in real estate.
Is it?
Yeah, I was in real estate. I actually had quite a tumultuous journey in real estate. I was very successful when I entered the market in about 2015, and I managed to work my way up through this company, which unfortunately towards the end we found out that the company had stolen significant amounts of money from their trust accounts from their clients, about 37 million rand. And there was lots of bomb blasts and explosions and all sorts of things that went off. And I really took a beating between 2017 and 2019 was really a very difficult time for me. But that's what I did then before.
Yeah. So it was also that time when you were, it's so interesting because it was when you're going through a difficult time, obviously your headspace and your internal conversation, that dialogue is negative, right? So how did you come across Abraham Hicks, Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks, as we know her? How did you come across her? Were you seeking sort of motivational, positive reinforcement at the time?
Well, no, I came across her when things were going very well. I came across her through a friend of mine, Tian Fick. He's actually he's another one that used Abraham, and he's now South Africa's heavyweight champion. And he used Abraham to get himself there. Unbelievable. But yeah.
How do you spell his name?
Yeah, so he introduced Fick, F-I-C-K, and it's Tian, T-I-A-N.
Okay, yeah. You can maybe get him on the show with us. Yeah,
sure. So things were going incredibly well, and I'm just grateful that I had this opportunity to connect with her. And at the time, all my receptors were open. I was ready to listen. And we were just manifesting. We were just manifesting success after success. Just to put you in a picture, within 6 months, we became the top salespeople in the organization. He partnered with me. And a few months after that, we launched our own branch, which became the second highest performing branch next to head office. And a few months after that, we became national sales management team for the nine companies across the country. So this was really just speaking. We just manifested this stuff, just speaking positivity and I think that the trick is, and what Abraham teaches is that you get the idea in your mind, but then you have to have the emotional connection to that, and that's where the manifestation happens. It's when you have the emotional, the feelings of success, the feelings of happiness, and all those things. That's when you sort of open up the door for all this beautiful stuff to come through. So that was when it happened, and then I had to. Yeah, and then I had to try and claw my way back to that, after things went so horribly wrong, that was challenging. That was very challenging.
Yeah. So, well, how did you claw your way back? I mean, since you just mentioned it now, like you found out that the company was unethical. Like, exactly what happened there?
Well, I don't want to harp on this one too long, but basically we got SARS involved. I mean, I was the one that raised the flag. We found out that this monies had been stolen, and we raised the flag, and we brought the company to its knees. We collapsed the company, and with that, we lost a lot of money, and a lot of people lost their jobs. So it was quite a horrible space to be in. And the journey after that was very tough. All my teachings went out the window between that point and the point where I actually did the video that started up hashtag I'm staying. That was, I mean, I was incredibly unhealthy. I was completely overweight. I was mentally in a very bad space. I couldn't get myself out of bed, if I'm completely honest. It was very traumatic. It was a very traumatic experience. But I had these teachings, that I could reference on, and I sort of slowly made my way back to those teachings. But it was hard because, when I first started learning about Abraham, my heart and my mind was open. When I tried to claw my way back, everything was closed. And it was like I could hear the mumblings of Abraham, but I couldn't make out what she was saying, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So that was really tough. But when the bomb dropped with I'm staying, and it took off like that, gosh, it just like the floodgates open, and Here
But
we
that's
are.
crazy. I mean, that's incredible because so many people on social media, do things and do attempt to create different pages or groups or whatever the case may be. But did you know at the time when you started that page, hashtag I'm staying, did you again referring back to Abraham's teachings, but it's not just Abraham, how this is the teachings of all the great not philosophers, but the great spiritual leaders, the great motivational leaders, that it's all about body, mind, and soul connection. That's what it is, right? So you can achieve anything as long as it's sort of the mind, the heart, the body, that's all in alignment with the flow of that goal and that energy. So when you started hashtag I'm staying, did you consciously have that connection? Were you aware of it, or was it just something straight from the heart that you were doing?
Well, I think it was a combination of a whole bunch of things, I mean, if you ask me, was I aware that I'm staying was going to do what it did? There's no conceivable way that anybody would have known. It was just the right message at the right time, and it took off. But I was conscious in my wording. I was deliberate in what I said. I was deliberate in the words that I used. And then from there, I was quite deliberate in trying to build. A lot of stuff we got wrong, a lot of stuff, but a lot of stuff we got right. And I mean, the rest is history.
Okay, so you grew up in Cape Town. You now in Cape Town. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. I grew up in Walkerville, which is a little farming town in the south of Johannesburg. I grew up just around the corner from a little dairy farm, and all my friends were from a little clay village just down the way.
Yeah.
I spent my time milking cows and eating prickly pears and chasing pigeons through the forest and setting the forest alight, which was
That sounds familiar.
I grew up in a very simple environment, and I guess in that respect, I was quite blessed because I wasn't jaded by the world or society that we found ourselves in. I was very much a little free spirit, and I was, I had the ability to roam and to explore and to make friends that were unconventional at the time, unbeknownst to me. I mean, I was just a kid, but anyway, that's sort of where I hailed from, and I spent most of my life in Johannesburg thereafter. I moved a little bit closer to the city and grew up and started working and got to travel the world quite a lot, quite extensively. I went into the mining technology space. I've done about 34, 35 countries around the world. So I've become quite a worldly person. I got to see a lot of Africa, which was also, I think, has also shaped my views on my own country and my own people.
Yeah. And what are you doing in mining?
And then I was in the mining technology space. So we supplied mining tech that would help companies get a better understanding of the geological models underground and a better way to mine them out, better, more efficient ways to mine them out, and all those sorts of things. It's not something I'm incredibly proud of because I don't really like the mining industry now. I'm not really a fan, but anyway. I wasn't experienced in it. It gave me a world of opportunity to explore the world and to explore people and to see different things. So I'm very grateful for the experience, nevertheless.
Yeah.
And then from there, I moved to Cape Town about a decade ago, and here I am today.
Yeah. So when you say mining technology, what exactly did you study? Was it called mining technology? Is it electrical engineering, or what was it?
No, I never studied any of it. I was in the sales, so my role was to sell these software packages into the mining sector. And we would deal with geologists and mining engineers and all the clever people. I wasn't a clever one. I just said I had a good mouth and lots of energy, and it worked in my favor.
Yeah. So tell me, at what point? It's interesting because I used to own an engineering recruitment company. And the reason why I didn't carry on is because it was engineering and I didn't believe in what was going on where the engineers ended up working, right? Which is in petrochemical, oil and gas, etc. So my ears picked up when you said you weren't proud of it. But at what point did you feel like, hold on a sec, this is maybe not where I want to be?
Well, there's two different conversations. I think the point at which I decided I no longer wanted to continue was just given the fact that it took a huge amount of my time, and I was traveling extensively and going into high risk areas, and I had a family, and it was challenging, and it wasn't something that I was capable of doing anymore. I'd run my course. I was depleted, and I needed something new. So that was why I left it. But it was only later, in later years, and I think I've become more conscious now over the last 2 or 3 years than ever before about the things that seemed so normal to me at the time.
Yeah.
And now I really find myself questioning the decisions we make as humanity and the impacts that we're having on this world and what that's going to look like in a little while from now. And what part we get to play as individuals in that process, either unwinding it or pursuing it.
Yeah.
And where that's going to leave us one day.
So you say you've got a family. What's your family situation?
What is my family situation?
Yeah, you've got kids.
Yeah, I've got a daughter and I've got an ex-wife. We're no longer married, but we get along like a house on fire.
See.
And I've got one little...
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we do. We get along very well. It wasn't an easy road. It took us about 8 years to get to where we are.
Yeah.
Of bashing heads and bumping heads, but we both came to the realization that when you get divorced, it doesn't mean you're out of each other's lives. The reality is that we stuck together.
Yeah.
Around that beautiful little creation that we made, and so we found a way. We forged a path, and we're in a very good space now with our child and in our relationship as it stands, I guess.
Yeah. So just going back to your question, because, Inspirational Interviews is very much about, about people connecting with their truth and finding out their journey to this place of truth, right? So when you were younger, you talk about being this sort of farm boy. You spoke about having unconventional friends. What did you mean by that?
Well, you got to remember, I was brought up in the 80s. This was just before was at the heart of our political challenges in South Africa. We had, I think people that grew up in suburbs and in the cities had a very different view to mine. I mean, I hear people saying that, I have black friends. Well, I only had black friends. That was my friends. I didn't know anything else. I mean, when I used to, we used to sit in a little village and their parents would cook supper and lunch for us, and it was what I knew. I didn't know anything else. I didn't know about all the atrocity, and I didn't know about all the ugliness and the racism and the ugliness. It wasn't part of my upbringing. So I think from that respect, I had a very different and clearer view of our people, because that's who I spent time with every single day. And my parents were quite active in a sense that they would help the surrounding communities and make sure that people were fed on the weekends, and built a really strong rapport with everybody in the town. And this is quite interesting. So we lived on this sort of panhandle thing, and almost every home had been broken into, and something had been stolen, or something had happened. Petty crime. And we were the only home on this panhandle that it was never touched, ever. They were never touched. So obviously somewhere in there, in that community, we were held in a high regard by that community, and we were protected by that community, just as we protected and held that community in high regard. So from that sense, I didn't have the same ideology, I guess, as a lot of people do.
Yeah. And when you say it, and obviously this is foremost a podcast show, so a lot of people are listening to this conversation and not watching it on the YouTube channel. But I see a smile in your face when you say that. And I'm just curious, this understanding of like what you put out, what you give, you get back, right? Did you always have this notion about life, or is this something now? Because it feels like your story, you traveled this journey, and it's when you went through that dark patch after, running the company in basically, and it falling to the ground. And then you had that dark patch, you were overweight, you talk about, and that's when you started #I'm staying. That's where the sort of enlightenment happened in your life. did you always have this knowledge of what you give, you get back, or is this something that you're more aware of now?
No, I think you become aware as you get older, and you know the realities of the world become more transparent. And but I've got to say that my father played a very instrumental role in my life. He was a very kind, very caring human being, very intelligent, and he constantly challenged my thinking. And I think so. And my mom as well. I mean, my mom played a huge part in that, in the sense that she was always for the underdog, and she would never see anybody being hurt or neglected if she could help it. And she's a tiny little lady, but she's got a big heart and not scared of anything. And so, I mean, I had these points of reference. I guess, while you might not understand these points of reference while you're growing up, you start to go through your own life experiences, and then maybe these things start to become more relevant, and you start to think back and reflect more on these things. And again, having a point of reference, I mean, I could have gone either way, right? I could have, perhaps if I had not had those points of reference, I could have turned into a really ugly person. I could have done some really ugly things and used my ability to bring more darkness to the world. But I never did that because I had these points of reference. So my job came, my mind came to bring more light where I could.
Yeah. And you say to bring more light where you could, but when you had that real estate business, or when you started the separate one with your friend that became one of the most successful, did you have that same philosophy of bringing good and light where you could?
No. I mean, what did I care about good and light? I was making money. I was making money. I was arrogant. I was very cocksure of myself, and all of the things that I was doing was promoting more of that attitude within me, right? Because I became untouchable. I was too hot to handle, man, and the whole thing came crashing down on me like a ton of bricks.
But you say it came crashing down on you, but it feels like you were instrumental in that, though. So do you think that was more sort of a godly event, if you think about it? Because you say it came crashing down on you, which is what a lot of people think, right? When they're going through a hard time, they think that life and it is coming down on them. But is it not, in a way? Do you think in a way it's like the spiritual thing that happens where we're creating it ourselves, we're co-creating it in a way, right, with the universe, that this comes crashing down, but as a result, something better happens?
Well, I mean, hindsight is, I guess we could look at things like that. I mean, at the time, I'm not the one that stole the 37 million, but I am the one that took action on it. So in that respect, yes, I mean, I created my own reality there, certainly. But I think no matter what happens to us in our journey, on our life's journey, no matter whether it's us or whether it's the world around us, I believe that we have some level of predetermined fate. I believe that we have some sort of place that we need to get to in our lives. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but I know that every single experience that I went through, that I put myself through, that was thrust upon me, led me to this place. I believe that I was supposed to be right where I am, and that I would never have achieved any of what I have if I hadn't have gone through that journey, because there was so much emotional learning, so much realization, so much self-awareness that had to be taught, that had to come to fruition. And otherwise I could have just carried on being that arrogant salesperson, right? That arrogant guy that was doing really well for himself, didn't really care too much about the world around him or anybody else in his world for that matter. I could have continued on that journey, as many of us do, but that's not what my path was, I guess. Like I said, it's my own philosophy, but it's my reality.
Yeah. So I'm going to go into where you are now with Move 1 Million and also just what ended up happening with hashtag I'm staying. But just on the breadth of what you were mentioning now, like, you know, so many people, and at the moment also, you know, with COVID having been like this unexpected, you know, shock to everyone's system, a lot of people also losing jobs, and also a lot of people reflecting very deeply about where they've been in their life because they've had so much time to reflect. Maybe just take us on that journey of that darkness and like really like let us understand it, because it's in that darkness that you were able to be more humble, it sounds to me, and more vulnerable in then creating that video of hashtag I'm staying, and sort of being more open-hearted publicly as well.
What more would you like for me to discuss?
So I mean, you talk about this dark patch, but I mean, what is show us what that meant, this dark period, because it was through that darkness you were able to step into something more enlightening.
Yeah, listen, I think we've unpacked it pretty well. I think the reality is that we had, the challenges were obviously financial challenges. We had devastation in a number of the relationships that were forged. I was seen as public enemy number one to the people that worked at the company, because I was the one that brought them down. I was just not in a sound mental or emotional state. I don't know what more to say on the topic other than you know, I was a broken individual. I was completely broken, and I was alone and was scared and was trapped, I guess, you know, cornered, snookered.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's much more to unpack with that. You know, that's where I was, and I made the decision to change my language and and try and seek out something that was more constructive. That's what I did.
And how long were you in that process for, in that phase?
So that was from 2017 to 2019. It was a slippery slope downhill, but where it got to the crux of it was early 2019.
Yeah. And that's when you made that video, because your speech was in such a negative place at that time.
Correct.
Yeah. So tell us about the video. Exactly. Can you remember what you said? You spoke earlier about the wording, and you were very specific with the wording.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. The wording that I gave you earlier was exactly what I said. Let's be more grateful, and let's have more gratitude, and let's start focusing on the things that we can control. That was exactly what I said. Yeah. Just
that.
Yeah, it was a short video.
Yeah, and can people still find this video?
I'm sure if they go looking at my account, yeah. I mean, it's a lot's happened since then.
Okay, so that's hashtag I'm staying. So when did that then transition into now, which is the Move 1 Million, and that's how we came to be together now in this conversation. Yeah. So how did that transition from out of hashtag I'm staying into Move 1 Million?
So when the hard lockdown occurred, we were trying to use I'm staying to motivate people. We had medical doctors, motivational speakers. I interviewed anybody and everybody. I interviewed some of our political leaders, some really, really well-regarded business icons in South Africa, people that were in psychology. We spoke to everybody. We try to keep the.
Why do you laugh when you say that?
Well, I don't know why I was laughing. It wasn't just, I don't know, part of my personality, I guess.
No, but I'm just curious if it was something that was reflective in the journey. You laugh in a way when you say psychologists, or If there was something in there with that?
Well, no, I think I was just getting to the point where I think I was just alluding to the fact that we spoke to anybody and everybody just to try and keep the people's sanity.
Okay.
I think that was what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we, things got to the point where the levels of desperation, and again, it was actually quite similar to the first bout, I guess. People were starving. We had 13 million people in South Africa starving. We had no way of providing relief, but they were imposing these incredible measures against us, which were still arguably, I don't believe they were right the way that they did it. I think that we've got far greater problems as a result of the measures that were taken. And it all culminated to a place where we became incredibly frustrated, and we launched March 1 million. So it became about, we wanted to actually just have a day where we could get South Africans together to march against the tyrannical measures that were being put in place and the fact that our country was falling to pieces. And someone said to me, don't you think you should make it a little bit less militant? And I thought on it and I said, okay, fine, let's change that to Move 1 million. And on the 5th of September, which is ironic, and it just happened by coincidence, which is the same day that I did the video of Move 1 million. A year later, we launched I'm Staying. We launched Move 1 million, and we had 18 countries standing in solidarity with us on this day, where we said enough was enough. We were not going to continue to allow our country to be ruled and dictated to. We were not going to allow greed and violence and corruption and all the ugliness to continue. We were going to find a way to build the nation, to bring the nation closer together. And we were going to do that through service. We were going to do that through active citizenry. We were going to do that through the direct electoral process, which is currently sitting in Parliament. It's just about ready to come out. And we were really going to push back against the system. We were going to stop the system in its tracks, but not through an anti-movement and not through a resistance per se, but more through the will of the people and through getting people activated and learning how to work together so that we could forge a new path. So it wasn't really one of trying to fight the system. It was one about saying, well, we can build a new system. We can build a new way. And we don't have to be beholden to, greedy politicians and those that seek to bring discourse to our land.
So for people that are listening to this in America or New Zealand or Singapore, wherever, when you say the system, let's just talk about this in sort of simple nutshell format. Like, exactly what are we talking about here? What is this? What is the situation, and what is the system, and what is it that you're trying to resolve?
Well, I think no matter where you're sitting in the world right now, everybody can relate to where we are. There are measures that are put in place that are tyrannical. We have the idea of democracy is gone. We are now sitting in a very communistic state, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world. That's the reality of where we are right now. So, and this is not about vaccines, and this is not about COVID. This is about decisions that are made by our government that really trample over the rights of people. We are told that we live in a democratic society, but the reality is that we don't live in democracy. Democracy is an illusion. There's no way for the people to respond back to those that sit in positions of authority. The bottom line is that people that are sitting in positions of authority, like government and like big business, they are only beholden to one another. They make the rules and they impose those rules upon us. That's not democracy. That is not freedom. That is not what we have all fought for so hard. So it's time that we change that system, but you're never going to change the system by trying to fight the beast. You can't take things, you can't use the same ideology that we've always used and hope to get a different result. We really need to turn to the people. We really need to look to each other and to find a way. And the only reason why we have power, why we've given so much power, is because we've become so reliant on these systems. We're reliant on industry. We're reliant on so many of these things. And the only way for us to change that is to change our own behavior. And by changing our own behavior, we can shift the balance of power. And we must shift the balance of power, because we cannot continue down this trajectory. We are going to find ourselves in a very, very, very frightening place if we allow things to continue. And I think that's a reality that most of your listeners, I'm sure, can relate to in some way.
Yeah. So are you talking about then, because my understanding from the outside, and maybe that's also because you're South African, is that your movement and Move 1 Million was very much aligned with South Africans, but is this on a global scale?
Well, it was aligned to my country, my people, absolutely. But I think on a global scale, there's so many similarities and there's so many things that are relatable. All we have to do is look around right now and see how the people are standing and rising against their systems. They're rising against the governments. They've had enough. People are speaking out. They are, and whether they're right or whether they're wrong, and you've got all these weird, crazy conspiracy theories floating around about 5G, and who cares? It's not the point. The point is that in an age of information, we've never had such little of it. We've never had such little clarity. We are more confused than we've ever been. And that's not a South African thing. That's a global thing. We don't know who to trust in the media. We don't know who to trust in government. We don't know who to trust on social media. There is so much discourse. There is so much disconnect. There is so much disinformation and misinformation floating around. And we used to know where the disinformation and misinformation came from, and now we don't. Now we don't know who's lying and who's not lying. It's a horrible, lonely place for us to be in. The only thing that you can trust is the person standing next to you, really. The person that's in the same boat as you. The person that's being affected in the same way that you're being affected. The person that has lost what you've lost. That's the person you can trust. That's the person you can stand next to. And I think that we've really got to look at ourselves and look at the role that we've played, allowing things to get to where they've gotten to, and ask ourselves how we bring about that change. And it's certainly true for South Africa, and I know it's true for just about the whole world right now.
Yeah. So, out of interest, are you familiar with the B Corp movement?
No.
Okay, no, because you talk about being an activist, and it's an organization that any company and Unilever and big companies are trying to be a B Corp company, which is very much where you do business for good. And so, and it's not just the people at the top who are running the company. Everyone involved in the business has a say in the business. So it's becoming it's a big movement in Europe, America. And yeah, I was just curious because you talk about being an activist, and that's something that they're also promoting at the moment, is that people actually, people need to be activists these days. So I was just curious if you had heard about the B Corp movement or B Lab.
No.
Yeah, so it's something interesting for you to look into. But so you've got this. So what is Move 1 Million? Is it a charity? You talk about being an activist yourself.
No, Move 1 Million is not a charity. We are a not-for-profit company. Our focus is on direct elections. We do have a charitable arm. We do work closely with NGOs, promote them, empower them, support them on their efforts on the ground. But our focus is on the people, directly electing our own people, being able to hold leadership in South Africa to account, being able to change the political system as it stands right now. That is really our position.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so it's very
our focus.
Yeah. Yeah, so it is. It's actually Are you wanting to become a political party? Are you wanting to have to?
No, we have no interest in becoming a political party. We will remain a movement, a liberation movement for the people, by the people. Our focus is on empowering everyday South Africans that have shown leadership during these very difficult times, to make sure that we can promote that leadership, to make sure that leadership can stand as an independent, so that their leadership gets supported, so that we can have our own people sitting in the House of Parliament that are not part of a political party, that do not represent a political party, that represent the people of South Africa, that are accountable to the people of South Africa, that are servants to the people of South Africa. Our entire organization, our entire movement, our entire ethos is around the people, not political parties, not becoming a political party, not smashing or promoting politics in any way. We are here to focus on how we can empower the people to turn things around. And that is our focus, and will continue to be our focus for the future.
Give me an example of the people. Give me a few examples of empowering which people, like.
Empowering which people?
So give me an example. You say the people, we want to empower the people. Like, give me examples on an everyday, just a everyday level. Who can
South
I picture
Africa,
in my head?
The people are the citizens of South Africa. So we want to empower the citizens of South Africa. We want to make sure that those who have been the most marginalized, the most affected, the most neglected by society are the ones that we can walk beside, are the ones that we can work with. So, we want to make sure that we can and highlight the companies, the NGOs, the non-government organizations that have been in the thick of it for the longest time, providing education, providing support, providing food relief, providing all the tools that are needed in order to create some semblance of a functioning society. Those are the people. We want to focus on the citizens of South Africa. The citizens of South Africa are and will always be our primary.
Yeah.
And we will always put them first. And we will always fight to try and create some levels of equality and hopefully inspire through our actions as citizens the nation, so that we can all walk together on this journey and to build this movement, which is a liberation movement by the people, for the people, one that can hold leadership to account.
So then, here you are. How many people work for you or with you, beside you?
Many. We've got a well-structured organization led by our CEO, Derek Holmes, who I appointed last year. We've got a full board of directors. We've got a steering committee. We've got an executive committee. We've got an action forum. We've got 150 branches on the ground. We've got 550,000 members. We've got a UK business arm. We're busy establishing business units in Israel and in China and in the USA with our expat communities that reside there. We've got a substantial number of people that make up this organization.
So then, for example, your name became known to me through someone who's based in England, but who is South African. So with branches in these overseas countries, how can they expect to have an interaction with you? With me personally, or with the organization? The organization, and well, if your personal gets involved, just how can that directly connect with them? Yeah, so we are currently busy putting a platform together, a tech platform. That tech platform is going to enable people from anywhere in the world to be able to participate in a number of different things, like supporting projects and operations on the ground. It will enable them to help us shape policies within the organization. I think the strength of what we are is that we are grassroots development. So we don't want to be a top-heavy organization that dictates the way that our political parties do. We want to be an organization that listens to the people and provides tools so that the people can have their views and can speak, and then use what they've said to shape policy and to shape the direction that we take as an organization. So we'll through those tools and through those functions, we'll be able to have people participating anywhere in the world. You don't have to be in South Africa, but you can certainly have your hand in the organization and be an active participant in how the organization goes forward. Yeah. So here I am now. Well, now I'm in South Africa, but I'm also based in the Netherlands. So, but I'm here at the moment. So, how would I get involved personally? Like Jen, I host a show. I bring people's stories to the surface, just me. Like, I'm just trying to see it from a really grassroots level from me, and then for the people listening to also be able to connect with that grassroots understanding. How would I want to connect with you? So obviously I'm interested in politics in a way that I want everyone to be treated fairly, and I want, I just want to live in a loving community, where there's no crime. I think for me, coming back from having lived overseas for over 20 years, and I come back now, just on an everyday citizen, I just want South Africa to not have to have electric fences, for example, and to know that people are safe. And to know that obviously the money in taxes is going, to a good place, and is being used properly, that the electricity is not cutting out, for example. Like, these are my everyday challenges here, right? How would I then want to connect with Move 1 Million? Or would I, is there a connection there for me?
So I think let's understand what we are setting out to achieve with independent candidates and independent machinery that we're aiming to build. There are two very important pieces of legislation that exist right now. One is the Section 15 of the IEC Act, which allows associations, everyday people like you and I, to register an association made up of community leaders from various wards within your municipality. That association can challenge the party that is currently in control of that municipal area. And we have so far taken 28 municipalities away from political parties. So we have decentralized municipalities.
Okay.
Which means that association made up of the people, 100% independent candidates, and the association are now in control of their rates, their taxes, and their services. They are now sitting with the ability to be able to ensure that those monies make it to their intended destination, to make sure that those municipalities, those wards within those municipalities are functioning efficiently and correctly. And this is all part of our process. There are another 46 municipalities that have been declared delinquent by our government. They just want to write them off. We're taking those as well. And there's only 257 municipalities that reside in South Africa. So by the time we're done, our intention is to decentralize municipalities, to make sure that these municipalities now belong to the people, that every single person that resides within that municipality is accountable to the people because they were elected by the people, and they don't get to hide behind a political party. They don't get to hide behind their cadre deployment. They must be equipped and skilled for the job that they have. These are all things that we are now involved in that are making a huge impact. The other thing is the direct electoral bill, which is now sitting in Parliament. We handed it over on the 18th of November last year. That was brought through by an association called OSA, One South Africa, with my good friend Michael Louis. Muslim Imani is also part of that. We worked with the New Nation movement to actually identify a significant flaw where the IEC directly contravened the Constitution. The Constitution says that you have the right to run as an independent candidate. The IEC said you must form a political party in order to run. So this was challenged in court, the constitutional courts, and it was found in favor by Chief Justice Mogoeng that the IEC Electoral Act must change in line with the Constitution. They were given 24 months. We are now sitting just over a year. It's passed all of its political musters. So these are all things that we are involved in. So let's just unpack what that means. If we start looking at the challenges that we face, at ground level, because many of our municipalities are dysfunctional, which means that many of our wards are not functional. We don't have things like flushing toilets in a large part of the country. We don't have things like services, where people have got just basic services that you and I take for granted every day, where you can just go and throw your stuff in the bin and the truck will come and collect it. They don't have any form of sewage, so you literally have feces and urine and all sorts of human excrement floating down every time there's a rain, and kids play in this. We've got so many levels of broken, no food stability, no way of encouraging any levels of food stability. So all of these things, we now have to take as a responsibility as the people. We cannot trust the government to do it. Clearly, there's no ways that the government could do it. Even if we had the most ethical government in South Africa, the task is simply too great. We have only focused on a very small minority and making sure that very small minority is functioning as a society. We've got a huge amount of broken. So we have a huge responsibility now as the people to work in tandem with government, because we're not making government the enemy here. What we're saying is that the people that reside in leadership positions within our government need to be changed. We need to make sure that we've got people that are going to be held accountable that reside within government. We have the private sector, and then we have civil society. It's a trifecta. That trifecta is going to be the make or break as to whether or not we can turn our society around. Now, if you want to get involved with us as civil society or as a business, or if you're in media, or it doesn't matter what your, if you have some will to want to get involved, these tech platforms that we're building are there to make sure we can identify the leadership within these wards, make sure that we can launch projects that are relative to these challenges that we face, and then build an ecosystem around those challenges to support the repair. So that's how you can get involved. You don't have to be in South Africa to do that. You can do that by way of supporting through financial aid. You can do that, and that financial aid doesn't have to come directly to Move 1 Million. That financial aid can come in the way of one of our partners that you'd like to support, an NGO or another business, or however you'd like to do that. But we are providing the tools through technology to be able to reach in and make an impact in South Africa, no matter where you sit geographically. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So what were your wording? You talk about wording and Abraham Hicks. What was your wording when you started Move 1 Million for yourself? Like, what was the mission statement?
To be honest, I can't really remember all that well. But we sort of, it's changed since then, actually. But we, the crux of it was that, we are in the battle for the heart and the soul of South Africa, and that we need to stand as the people and not allow this to continue any longer. And that we are not here to fight political parties. And we have no resentment towards any political supporters, but this is beyond politics. This goes way beyond politics. This is about the people, what we can do as civil society. And I think our mission has always been, and we use the same ideology with Move 1 Million as we did with I'm Staying, is to say that we don't care about your religion, we don't care about your race, we don't care about your political affiliations. This transcends all of that. What this is the fight for our country, for our home. And that transcends all of these things that seem to so often divide us and separate us from reaching our true potential. We want it to be bigger than that, better than that.
Yeah.
And then define something that would create a vehicle to drive us to the promised land.
To the promised land, yeah. So tell me, is like it? I know you say it's in a way, like I'm hearing you saying it's not political because it's for the people. But I mean it is. It's in a way we become political anyway, right? Because it's the whole country's situation. Is this something that you're wanting to grow into even more, or are you wanting to, stay? It feels like you want to stay on the outside of politics, but you are very involved in politics.
Well, you can't not be involved in politics. I mean, let's just have a real frank conversation here for a second. Politics exists in everything, and politics has been made a dirty word. It was never supposed to be that way. Politics was supposed to be a group of people coming together to effect positive change, to identify problems and find solutions. That was politics. Now politics has become about money, and it's become about power. And it was never the intention, never. So one could say that we are political, and well, I'm not going to dispute that. I'm not going to challenge that. If you want to assume us to be a political party or have political motivations, so be it. Well, as an organization, I can tell you that we will never register as a political party, and you will never find us as an organization sitting in the House of Parliament. Although you may very well find many of our support base sitting in the House of Parliament as an individual. The organization will always stand on the outside of Parliament. We will always stand on the outside. We will always be a movement that is there to ensure that the will of the people is done, to ensure that we hold not just political parties to account, and not just politicians, but also businesses and also other organizations, that do not serve the best interests of our country. They have put their own desperate needs ahead of those of the country. So that positions us more as an ombudsman. It positions us more as a watchman on the wall.
Yeah.
So
okay.
we will always promote good ethical leadership, and we will do whatever we can to make sure that good ethical leadership is in a place where it can affect the most change, and that will be the House of Parliament. But we will not be in there as an organization. We will be steadfast outside the gates, peering in.
Yeah. No, it's cool to see that. And what constantly comes up when I hear you talk about this as well is it's so interesting how that transition in your life, right? When you had that time where you let go of that life where everything was about sort of, as you talk about the big ego and the money, and you were, the king of your castle. And, now you've become not the gatekeeper, but now you talk about being on the wall and watching, being a guard, making sure that things are being protected. And it's interesting how you had that experience. It had such a profound impact on you, and which seems to be this reiterating force in your drive of what you're creating now, right?
Yeah. One has to come to the realization in their lives that we can spend our entire life chasing things and gathering. We can gather all sorts of things. We can gather houses and cars and money and businesses, But that doesn't mean you've succeeded in your life. That doesn't mean success. Success to me is what you can give. How you can impact someone in a positive way, how you can bring a little bit of light to the darkness, how you are remembered. That is success in my view. And I've had to learn all of this on my journey, because I wanted to be this thing, and it was just not my path. I was never destined to be that thing. I think my destiny now is to help where I can, do what I can with the time that I have. And I would love to impart that philosophy on as many people as I can along my journey, and to plant as many seeds as I can now, so that when my time here is up, that we can continue to walk in that path as a people, and continue to affect people's lives in a way that is meaningful. And unless you're doing that, you're not living, you're just existing. And you can be surrounded by all the riches of the world and not get that point and have achieved nothing in your life.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's our purpose. I don't think that's why we were put here. I don't think humanity was put on this earth just to rape and pillage our resources and to break everything that is good for stuff. And the more I journey along, and my relationship is starting to change with my environment around me. When I speak of the environment, I mean the planet and animals and industry and the oceans. I mean, I'm really starting to just look at all of it and say, how did we go so wrong? How did we go so far away from this beautiful thing that was all just works in perfect unison? Everything just works, and here we are, just smashing it up to pieces. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. And I think that we have a very important role to play, not only to defend our democracy, not only to protect our people, but also to protect our planet and to protect this beautiful place we call home, so that it can continue to provide for us, long after we are all gone.
Yeah. So on that note, what's your message to people out there who are in a job because they're in a job because they need a job? Where you had this enlightenment, this huge transition in your life. And, I often say, like, some people have to live a whole lifetime to learn what's really important, right? And some people have these moments in life, these either shocking moments, traumatic, tragic moments through their life and earlier on, which teach them these certain things. But a lot of people can also be living like ants or sheep, where they just, they're on that treadmill of life. Like, what would your advice be to those people who are listening now, that this particular message speaks to their heart, where they feel like, what am I doing with my life? And how can I turn it around? They didn't have something so traumatic happen to them. Or what would your message be to those people?
My dad always said to me, don't give people advice, because if you're right and they didn't take your advice, they'll hate you. And if you're wrong and they took your advice, they'll hate you. So I'm a little bit cautious to give people advice. I can't speak for anybody else. I can only speak for myself. And if you are feeling the way I'm feeling, then this is what's my journey. My journey was to throw caution to the wind, and at great risk and at great pain, I might add. I've suffered financially significantly as a result of my decisions, but I've grown emotionally significantly as a result of my decisions. And I believe that the financial stability will come eventually in time when it's supposed to. But we're not cattle. We're not cattle. Life isn't just about waking up first thing in the morning, going to a job that you hate just so that you can pay your bills and spend money on stuff that you don't need, just to do it all over again, continuously. It's insanity. There's nothing normal about that. There's nothing normal about existing when you should be thriving in a world that was designed to thrive. We are earthlings. We were designed to thrive. We were designed to be happy and to just get the best out of life. And somewhere along the line, man arrived. and he arrived with all his philosophies and all his ideologies and all his smartness, all these things that he knew better. And in the process, destroyed everything good. And I don't want to be complicit to that in my personal thing. So I'm not going to advise anybody, but I think everyone needs to really just reach inside themselves. And if your calling is so loud and so great that you cannot ignore it, then my advice would be don't ignore it. And that's all I'm going to say.
Cool. It was strong advice. Even though you don't like to give advice, it was still advice.
My dad must be shaking his head at me. My dad's probably shaking his head at me right now, saying, I warned you.
But Jarette, you talk about, we're going to lead towards closing off now, but I do want to quickly go back to that one comment you made about, you've suffered a great deal in making this change, because this is what people are so afraid of. They're so afraid of shaking their financial status. And I mean, I know, so you do have a daughter, you've given us a little bit of info there about your, just your private life situation, which is important for people to understand, because most people who are afraid to take these leaps have a family, right? Whether it's an ex or whatever, but they have dependents. This is what people are so afraid of. It's that financial risk. It's the financial instability. Can you just give us a little bit more meat there, for people to, I don't know, maybe not be so afraid, or...
I honestly don't know what else to say on that topic. We all have to live with the choices that we make. All I know is that I don't want to turn around one day at the end of my life and say, I wish I had. I don't want to turn around and feel like I wasted my time trying to gain things that brought me really no fulfillment. And if you think that money is going to give you fulfillment, well, I'm sorry to tell you, it won't. If you think that a new house and a new car is going to make you happy, it may for a short while, but eventually you'll just want another one and another one, and you'll never really be satisfied. We've been taught that happiness comes externally, and we've been taught that the things that we gain are the things that bring us happiness, and that's a lie. It's a lie. Happiness is something that is internal. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be happy. If you're earning a lot of money and you're very happy with your life and you've got yachts and you're traveling the world and that fulfills you, then that fulfills you. This is not about you then, I guess. But if you're feeling lonely and empty, if you're feeling like you're supposed to be on a different path, that's your intuition talking. That's your internal system talking to you. If you feel like the world doesn't make sense to you right now and you don't know where to fit in, that's your intuition. I believe that's your spirit talking to you, and ignore your own advice, emotional, intuitive advice at your own peril. And we live an average of 28,000 days. Let's put that into perspective. Humanity is on this earth, the average person, if they get to live a full life, for 28,000 days.
Wow.
How many days have gone by? How many days have you squandered? How many days do you have left? And what are you going to do with the time that you have? The beautiful gift of life that's been given to you. That's it.
Cool. Yeah, beautiful. Well, it's been super, super cool to chat to you and to, just connect with, to be able to share a story of someone who, a South African who's living in England and wanted to hear your story. And now I hear your story, and it's a privilege to share your story with people who aren't living here. And, I made that move to come back here, and everyone is completely shocked that I did, because I've lived overseas since I was 23. And, South Africa is just such a stunning, beautiful country with such beautiful people. And, what you're doing and creating these strong foundations, building pillars in place that, that can be, just people can believe in, and people can, build around, and, it's beautiful. And, I'm just really happy to have someone like you in South Africa, when I've just arrived back, and you're one of the first people I'm interviewing now for our new season. So it's really cool to, connect with such a strong heart of Africa.
Well, I'm very honored to have been given this opportunity to speak with you, and I hope that our message, does something positive for someone today that hears it, or whenever they get an opportunity to listen. And welcome home. We need people home. This is our home. We have work to do.
Beautiful. Thanks, Jarette.
Thank you very much for having me.